All right. So from my side, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the third Natural Science Collection Facility Forum. A special welcome to our guests from the Department of Science and Innovation and to our guest from SANBI, our Acting Chief Executive Officer. But welcome to all of you from all our partner institutions as well. So it really is a special event for us, this forum. And this year it's not a usual forum. It's an unusual forum. We're living through an unusual time, as all of you will well know. And we had to take a decision to not have our usual physical forum where we all get together in a very nice place. Recognize that just for health and safety reasons, that would be not possible at this time. And so we took the decision to have the forum virtually. And for us in the NSCF, unusual is our usual. So everything we do is not just normal and usual. And the whole program of the Natural Science Collection Facility is an unusual effort. So it's a research infrastructure project that's funded by the Department of Science and Innovation. But ours is different to the other projects that they're funding. So we are working to get 16 different institutions that hold many different collections to all work together. And these institutions fall under different structures and they're scattered across the country and they have different challenges and different types of collections. And so it really is an unusual effort that we have to make to get this to work. And we're all working together to ensure the security of the collections and to make sure that they are used for generating knowledge and for decision-making that serves society. So achieving this aim and making sure it's more than just an informal network. It really is getting an integrated approach. And this means that we have to think in unusual ways and we have to act and have activities that are unusual. And so unusual is for us the way we operate. Always challenging ourselves and trying to think outside the box about solving the challenges of everybody together. And you'll see that for this forum, our agenda and our program are also unusual. It's not your typical virtual conference that I'm sure many of you have been attending over the last year, where you link into the conference and it's packed full of PowerPoints all day long. And this is not what we're doing. So we have a very different approach in our agenda. So the reason for this is that what we've realized is that we can't just care for our collections in isolation. We also have to care for our staff and for ourselves, for our colleagues, and for our institutions. And so that's why this program this week will be a little bit different. It's not just technical or research findings. It's about things that are equally important, and that's caring for ourselves and for others. We've been very fortunate over the last 3 years to work with Desiree Paulson and Ilse Olkers, who've been helping us and guiding us as the NSCF hub and the leadership of the different institutions. So for 3 years, they've provided us with guidance and a lot of development. And they have, once again, helped us to put the agenda together. And you'll be seeing quite a lot of them through the week. And so I just have to acknowledge both Des and Ilse for helping us and also for their contribution to the program. I also need to thank the members of the Hub team who have spent a lot of time organizing this forum. So I have to admit that I can't take much credit for it. I was on leave, and then I've also been very busy with the biodiversity biobanks, which is a different project. And so I delegated a lot of the responsibility to Chanel Ribeiro and Fulu Tambani and Audrey Ndaba and also Sipho Sochangani. And then for the videos, Ilse van der Merwe and Margaret Bott-Koyak have put in a lot of time. So thank you very much to them for all their work. And I think you've been seeing a lot of the promotions and that Fulu has put to get people to participate. I think she's done a really great job, and some of you might have been subjected to pressure from Audrey. So thanks to her for that. So I think from my side, my main message is to say thank you to everybody for joining us and to ask that you stay engaged in the session. So I know, and I know I do it myself, but often when you're participating in a virtual conference, the temptation is to be doing something else and listening with half an ear. And for this forum, it is really asking you to stay fully engaged in it. I think that the benefits will far outweigh the time that you spend and the sacrifices in terms of your work that you might have to make. So that's from me, and I'm really excited and looking forward to some really interesting sessions that will follow. The program does look really exciting and interesting. So I think that's all from my side. I think at this stage, I'm hoping that Carmel Mbizwa has joined us. And so I'd like to hand over to Carmel. She's the acting CEO of SANBI, and she's also the chair of the NSCF Advisory Committee. So Carmel, can we hand over to you?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Michelle. A very, very warm welcome to all of you. I'm really honored to be able to welcome you all on behalf of the South African National Biodiversity Institute. SANBI has a legal mandate in the Biodiversity Act for Herbaria, zoological and microbial collections, and the National Science Collection Facility is therefore an important component of SANBI's work. Since 2015, SANBI has led the process through developing a proposal, establishing structures, launching and now implementing a range of activities. And this process has been led by Dr. Hammer with dedication and commitment. SANBI works according to a network of partners, and we're really dependent on the expertise based in our partner institutions and on their data for several of our other legal obligations, such as the red list assessments for species and spatial planning. This is the third forum, and while circumstances globally have changed radically since we all met in Drakensberg in October 2017 for the first forum and official launch, the National Science Collection Facility has been able to continue its work and to be creative despite lockdown restrictions. And now it has been needed to hold this virtual event. I hope that it will be stimulating and engaging and transformative for you all. We're very grateful to the Department of Science and Innovation for their support of the facility as part of the South African Research Infrastructure Roadmap, and for challenging the natural science collections community to work in a different collaborative way. I want to especially thank Dr. Jonas Saletti for joining us on behalf of the Department of Science and Innovation today, despite being on leave. I also want to thank the other DSI managers who are here and hope that they'll enjoy the sessions that they are able to attend. I also want to just focus a little bit on the excellent progress that's been achieved to date. As Michelle said, there's currently 16 institutions that are formally participating in the NSCF. This includes 5 provincial museums, 4 national and 1 municipal museum, 3 science councils, and 3 universities. A high-level advisory committee, a coordinating committee, and 4 working groups have been established. And there's been some really great outputs to date. And these include, in terms of securing the collections and making them accessible, a collection management and conservation manual has been published. Several orphan collections have been moved to other institutions and are being integrated into their collections. An NSCF access policy and access appeals process has been developed. And the data for 80% of the collections have been migrated to Specify software. And the NSCF is represented on all 3 committees of the International Specify Consortium. The standards, procedures, and workflows for imaging of type specimens have been developed, and work has started on this project. In terms of promoting the value of the collections, a project investigating the value of the collections for addressing challenges has been initiated. The information collected will be used to promote understanding of how the collections are used for environmental and economic decision-making, how they form the record of our biodiversity and its origins, and some of the remarkable specimens that are on hold on behalf of the country. There's also been great work in terms of communications. A website, Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp account have been developed for communication both within and outside of the network, and a newsletter is compiled and distributed every second week. A series of webinars was launched in July 2020 to ensure that there's active engagement between the hub and the institutions during the lockdown. And there's also been integrated reporting on the outputs. And just to name a few of the outputs in this regard, over 1,000 requests for data have been serviced. 646 new species have been described from the collections, and 676 papers have been published to date. Over 2 million specimens have been identified for clients. And then I just want to end off by talking about the remarkable transformation journey that the NSCF has been on. It's really been one of the most significant activities over the past 3 years, and has been a leadership development, transformation, and organizational development process led by Africa Spirals. This has increased awareness of the practices and the attitudes that are legacies for colonialism and apartheid, and really highlighted the need for greater inclusivity. Also the need for better communication, active engagement of staff in planning and decision-making, and the need to actively address discrimination associated with race, gender, and position. Implementation of the NSCF has required change in culture and practice in institutions, and recognizing the difficulties that people have with change. There have also been sessions covering change processes. The development of a strong leadership team, an integrated network of staff and institutions have been one of the key objectives of the whole process. And this forum aims to really take this objective further. So colleagues, I want to once again warmly welcome you all the participants, including managers and staff from all the 16 partner institutions and members of the advisory committee. A warm welcome to you all, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kamal. We really appreciate your opening, and we realize that you're very busy, that you are actually at an EXCO meeting this morning. So I appreciate you stepping out of that to open the forum for us. Thank you, Kamal. All right, so our next opening contribution is from Dr. Jonas Saleti, and he's the Acting Deputy Director General at the Department of Science and Innovation, but he's also the Chief Director for the Science Missions, and he has really, he wears many hats when it comes to the Natural Science Collection Facility. He's our main link at DSI for the NSCF, but he's also a member of our advisory committee, and he also is a member of the SANBI board, and so he sees us from many different angles. And as Kamal said, Dr. Saleti is actually on leave at the moment, but he did agree to join us just for a short while. Chanel says that she's not sure that he's here. I don't know if there's somebody from DSI, somebody else from DSI here.
Hi everyone. Hi Prof. I'm here, but I don't know if he connected.
Okay.
Yesterday we spoke. He said he was gonna connect. So.
All right. Okay. So I think maybe if we can just keep an eye out for him for when he does join us, and then perhaps in the meantime we can continue.
Yeah, I'm probably struggling because he's in Zambia, as he's not in South Africa.
Okay, all right, shame. That could be a bit of a challenge. I didn't realize he's out of the country at the moment. Okay, all right, so I think let's continue then. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Audrey to take us to the next item on the agenda. Audrey?
Morning, everyone. Thanks, Michelle. So mine to do is very easy. It is to introduce the next person who is going to take us to the blessing of the session, of the next session. Dr. Gcimi has imparted his intergeneral knowledge of plants, particularly the wild ones. So if you've ever met him, I'm sure he's definitely told you something about the plants, and his philosophy is that knowledge is a universal heritage. And so he will bless the sessions that he is about to start. Gcimi, I'm going to hand over to you now.
Good morning, members of the forum and our guests. As Audrey has already told us, my name is Pumlani Femi. I'm a botanist at Unveiling Museum. Allow me to welcome all of us in this sessions of the forum. I know part of our being here is because we see value in this forum, and also we had other very important projects of our lives and also at work, but we took a decision and prioritize this forum and put it on the top list of our priorities for these sessions to succeed. As the ball is about to roll, allow me to say to you, take off your jackets and make sure that you grab a glass of water so that you can be able to punch the test as the forum will be gaining momentum. Fortunately for me, as you have already noticed that I'm a botanist, I'm surrounded by trees, and it means part of my being in this forum will be saved by these trees, which will keep me cool, calm and collected as they continue to provide those trees so that I stay focused in this forum. And some of these trees that are behind me mostly are indigenous, and some are the living fossils, such as cycads. One of them, and then is also known in my language as Unkoba, which those that like to praise the trees, they call it Patercombus latifolia, which is once exploited for being used in many ways. And one, they call it the real yellowwood, and in botanical names it's Patercombus latifolia. It has made floors, work on boxes, furniture, even coffins, especially during the COVID period. But today it's not going to make my coffee, going to provide me with the freshness so that I can be able to continue to stay fresh in this forum. And having said that, I would like to welcome everyone on this as we continue to start this without and then forgetting those who played a very important role in making sure that the forum succeeds and comes up to those that have organized the forum. And if I were to quote to one of our famous TV presenter of SABC Morning Live by the name of the late Mr. Briomoli, may his soul rest in peace. I know he was going to say, which means we are as sharp as the edge of the sword. And I so wish that we can stay as sharp as that edge of the sword throughout these sessions, and we will be ready to dissect whatever task which is put on our table and participate and contribute positively right from the beginning until the very end of the program. And that on those few words, again, I would say uboso wena and ikamako ukuthi kwesiphosa kudla kuthiwa bevumile ungoko ke silapha namhlanje onwabile 70 inkosi kakhulu thatha iintambo zakho program director. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that beautiful blessing, Dr. Timi. So my name is Desiree Paulson, and myself and my colleague Ilse, we will be holding the frame of the 4 days and sharing some of the sessions as well, facilitating some of the sessions. So we are very honored to be here, very excited for this virtual space and hoping that we can find a way to make it as human as possible. So really welcome, and hoping that this can blow some freshness, to borrow a word from Dr. Timi, into our dusty spaces. So Ilse, would you like to just say hello and introduce?
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Timi, for that beautiful blessing. It's so beautiful to know we are being guarded by those beautiful indigenous trees with their ancient histories, those living fossils. And it really brought home to me again the profound work that we are busy doing. This is not ordinary work. As Michelle said, everything about the NSCF is unusual. And for us, for Desiree and for myself, it has been an unusual privilege to be part of this community. It has been an unusual privilege to be able to work together to safeguard and value this record of our life together on planet Earth. And I think for Desiree and myself, the most important collection is the collection of people on these screens, on these pictures here this morning. This is the collection that Desiree and I are most inspired by and care for the most. So it's wonderful to be with all of you here this morning. Thanks, Des.
Thank you. Thanks, Ilse. So in a few minutes, you are going to have the privilege of meeting some of your wonderful colleagues in small groups. So we will do our check-in round in smaller groups. As you can imagine, with over 100 people, we won't be able to do our usual rounds, but we will do it in the smaller groups. Before we go there, we would like to just orientate you to the 4 days. So I'm going to ask Chanel if she could just share the screen from our PowerPoint, and I will just very quickly take you through an overview of the 4 days. And obviously everybody would have received the program. Hopefully you'd looked at the program and already chosen some of those sessions that you feel excited to attend. And please also a reminder to tweet. So there's the Twitter link, and please make that part of your day as well. So the theme for the 4 days is about caring and sharing. And as you can imagine, at a time of huge global pandemic and so much heartache and death and so much pain and illness, it has really impacted on our working lives in a big way. And so the theme of caring and sharing obviously came to the forum in the planning of this event, and will be the overarching theme for the 4 days. Thank you. Chanel, if we can just go to the next slide. Okay, so we are on day 1 today, and I'll just share the program. Chanel, you can just go to the next slide. So there you have it. We've done all our formalities beautiful welcomes. Thank you, Michelle, Kamal, and Dr. Timi. And also from us as the facilitators. So session 1 is the next session, who we are. And there we will have a check-in round in small groups, and then we'll be playing a wonderful video of all the different institutions' video clips that they have sent us, introducing themselves. Then we'll have a short tea break. And after that, we are going to take you a little bit back, sharing our story so far with a panel sharing session about the journey and where it all started. And then we've got a beautiful celebratory event of unveiling the manual, and the people involved there will be taking us through that and sharing that moment with us, moment of celebration. And we'll end the day with a reflections again, reflections in smaller groups, and something about the photographic competition, which we'll share a little bit more with you. Okay, and then day 2, Chanel, if you can just take us to the next slide. The theme for day 2 is about caring for self and teams. And of course, self-care being a very big theme for us at this time, and also caring for our teams in virtual environments, which have been quite challenging. So just show us the program. Next slide, please. So the program for day 2 is, again, we would love to start with some beautiful creative expressions, and we've got a wonderful word performance by Sanelise Iwe. And then we've got, again, we'll start off with check-in round. And then session 3 is all about how we are. And we have 4 parallel sessions. Hopefully you'd had an opportunity to look at that and to choose which one you'd like to go into. And then, of course, a tea break. And then session 4, again, we have 4 parallel sessions where we are. So session 3 is how we are, and session 4 is where we are. And that is really looking at the current context of working virtually, leading in times of COVID, restorative conversations about the current realities, and looking at the risks to our collections. And then again, we'll end the day with a checkout and just the photographic competition, which you'll hear a little bit more about later. And that's day 2. Day 3, if you can take us to that next slide, just to share the theme. So day 3 is about caring for our institutions and our practice, which is a big part of the work, obviously. And so day 3's program, if I can just take you through that quickly. Again, you know, each day will start with creative expression. And we've got a musical performance there from Marianne Leroux. And then we've got, again, our reflection in small groups. And then session 5 is what we've done and learnt. And there we've got some wonderful case studies from different institutions, as well as courageous conversations. And so again, you'll have an opportunity to choose which session you'd like to go to, 4 parallel sessions. Then session 6 is about why our work matters. And here we've got some research contributions. We've got looking at the use of natural history in a changing world. So there we've got two sessions, parallel sessions. Okay, and then again, we'll have our checking out. So every day we check in, we check out in small groups. And then the last day, the final day, day 4, which is Friday, the theme is about caring for the network. So caring for the entire network of the NSCF. And our program for day 4 is, again, a creative offering. And we've got some wonderful offerings already wanting to share, and we'll finalize that. And then we've got a town hall Q&A. So that session looks at what next, and we've got some overarching conversations where we will take you into virtual cafe conversations in small rounds, group rounds, and that continues after the tea break. And then the final session looks at the road ahead and really about the manual implementation, collaborations, communications, and accountability. And that's basically the 4 days. Okay. Ilse, anything to add from your side? Okay. So now that we've got the 4 days mapped out, we'd like to start with our day 1. and this is where we're going to take you into small groups for our check-in activity. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, before we go to the check-in, we just wanted to share some Zoom rules with you, and I'm sure you're all familiar with these by now, but just in case there are some people who are new to Zoom, you know, obviously microphone off, but I think the hosts can also control that, and just check whether when your microphone is off or on when you want to speak. Video on, please. We'd love to see everybody, and it does create a much more human connection. And if you can't because of bandwidth, we do understand. Use the chat as much as you'd like to. Please, that's another conversation. Ask questions, you know, do as much as you'd like to there. You can also use the hand raising function if you want to speak, but also just put up your hand when the camera is on, or you can just switch your camera on. And also use the reactions button for all kinds of things. You can put a heart, you can put a clapping hand, smiling, and that kind of thing. And then when Chanel puts you into a small group, you'll see a pop-up on your screen saying join breakout room, and you just click join, and you will find yourself in another room with smaller group of people. And when it's time to come back, you will just return to the main room. Okay, so that's the Zoom rules. And then just a reminder on the next slide, a reminder about registering for the parallel sessions if you haven't done so already. Okay, thank you. So yes, there are parallel sessions on day 2, 3, and 4. So in your invitation email, you would have been asked to join, and you won't be able to get into them unless you've registered. So please register for the parallel sessions. This is the main one. You've registered and you're all in. And so for the parallel sessions, you'll need to register. You'll be with a group of 4 people. And so each person will have 3 minutes. We're wanting you to do a round. And in the 3 minutes, we'd like you to share with your small group your name, your position, and your institution. And then what attracted you to attend this forum. And then what inspires you about your work right now. And after each person has shared, stand back and look at what is the common theme or themes from your sharing that you'd like to bring back to the big group. And if you can ask someone from your group to please make notes. And when we come back to the plenary, that person can just post their notes into the chat. And we won't be able to hear from every group, but we will be able to see it in the chat. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to ask Chanel to break us up now. We are over 100 people, and you will now find yourself in a group of 4, smaller group. So please join that group, and you will have 15 minutes in the small group. So have fun, enjoy it, and enjoy your connecting with your colleagues. And you will be brought back automatically. So after the 15 minutes is up, Chanel will click close the room, and automatically you will come back to the main room. Okay, so Chanel has just popped it into the chat, what you are needing to cover. So just take note of that, because you probably won't see it once you're in your small group. So just make a note of what you are actually sharing. And remember to ask somebody to take notes and share the main themes emerging from your small group. Thanks, Chanel. You can put us into groups. So we'll see you in 15 minutes.
So we are about to watch the video and see if it works. It's going to be 1 hour and then we'll take a leg stretch after that. Okay, so over to the tech team to take us back into the video. Thank you.
Part of our introduction session was going to be our video, where we introduced again to all 16 our different institutions. And thank you so much to everybody who shared their little videos. And once it's all stitched together, it is going to be a beautiful journey for us to see this network of institutions, of people, of collections that we all form part of. So we really look forward to that. What we thought would follow on from that, but which is coming before that now, is a step back, as Des said, and just a moment's reflection on the path we've traveled, our story so far, So we've asked about 4 elders of our community to share with us some of their reflections. And we wanted some personal reflections, some personal storytelling. I do have a timeline, but I think as far as the tech is concerned, let's keep the timeline to the end of the panel sharing, so that we don't have more tech disruptions right at this very moment. But we do have one slide for you that just tracks a little bit the timeline of the life cycle of the NSCF, because it was already a glint, it was already an imagination way back, more than 20 years ago. It already existed as an idea, as a hope, and as a dream. And it's amazing for us to be able to track that whole journey to where we are today. So when Des and I first came on board, we had an incredibly memorable first meeting with what at that stage was called the sort of reference group, a small committee, a small reference group that at that point had been really guiding and supporting Michelle. And this was before the hub team had really been established. And it was a very memorable meeting for all of us in December of 2017, I think it was, just after you'd had your first official launch in the Drakensberg. And so we've asked Levuyo, Alison, Angus, Tertia, and Michelle to each share with us 5 to 7 minutes or so of their personal reflections and reminiscences of their journey with the NSCF. And we included Angus in that group, even though we didn't meet Angus at that first meeting in December. But Angus has been, in a way, also one of the elders that has kept us on the straight and narrow. I can think, if I had to reminisce, I can think of quite a few engagements where Angus came in and really kept us focused on what it was that we needed to achieve. So we wanted to include him in that community of elders. So Michelle, I think we'll start with you, just as the person who really has been the person through whom this initiative has been given life. And so we'll start with your few minutes, and then we can see who would like to follow her. I don't have a specific speaking order. Alison, Angus, Tertia, Levuyo, whoever feels ready to move on after Michelle. So I hope all of you enjoy this beautiful storytelling and reminiscing. And then just the last thing, colleagues, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure you all know, you've got 2 view options in the top right-hand corner of your Zoom screen. You can either keep the beautiful mosaic of all these different faces, or if that distracts you a little bit, you can actually go to speaker view, and then only the face of the person who's speaking will be on your Zoom screen. And some people find that easier to really listen into what the person is sharing. So Michelle, over to you. Our story so far.
Thanks, Ilse. Okay, so I'm probably the eldest of the elders when it comes to the history of the NSCF. So I was the one who was tasked by the Department of Science and Technology in those days for developing a proposal for the research infrastructure roadmap. And so it was actually in 2014 that I held the first meeting at the Department of Science and Technology then in Pretoria, and invited a representative or two from each of the institutions, and we met. And it was really a very negative experience. So people all had reasons why we couldn't do anything together as a network. They felt very demoralized. And in general, the spirit was very negative, and it was enough to make anybody run a mile. It was not inspirational. But we soldiered on, and I think as we started having more meetings and engagements, there were individual people who were positive and who spoke out positively, and it kind of started to get a different energy at that stage. It was over basically 2 years. But at that stage, there was no real interaction across institutions. And even within institutions, there was very little engagement across departments or different collections. So there was lots of fragmentation and people working in isolation. And I think, even at that stage, I was quite skeptical about getting an investment, getting funding from the department. I think we all didn't really think it would happen. I think we were so used to disappointment that we, even me, I was going to the meetings where we saw the other projects that were up potentially for funding, and they were very high-tech projects. Very big projects. And so I thought that we didn't have a chance. But then when we got the news that we were going to be funded, I think the energy started to get even better, and there was more enthusiasm. And I think over the years we've had people, and I think some of them will speak this morning about people who've really stepped up and pushed the NSCF along, or pulled it and inspired others and encouraged and motivated. And I think that that's how we've started to work now as a leadership team, where even when we're going down a negative route, somebody will inspire and encourage and make everybody fired up again. And so I think we've come an incredibly long way. And I think the first forum where so many of you probably came to that launch and saw that this was really going to happen, and that there was a role for everyone to play in the NSCF, that it's not somebody else's thing. I think then the energy got even better. Obviously, we've hit glitches. The COVID has been a big impact on us meeting and engaging, but I think we've been able to show that we are resilient, that we can keep working through that time. So, just how far we've come since that first meeting in 2014. And so it's valuable for me to think back to what we were and how negative things were, and to see how far we've come now. So I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you. And even before that first meeting in 2014, there were all those sort of research papers that I think somebody made reference to that in our small little check-in group, the dire state of collections at that point that was captured in those initial sort of reviews. Yeah, Alison, are you ready to follow on?
Yes, I am.
And please introduce yourself as well.
All right. My name is Alison Reiters. I'm the director of the Durban Natural Science Museum. So I won't be sticking to the 7 minutes. I've asked permission to go over a little bit, but it's just so that I can add a little bit of personal reflection. So not long after taking up my current role as director of the Durban Natural Science Museum in 2010, I was introduced to the audit report of South Africa's natural science collections in 2011, where Michelle was one of the editors and authors of this report. And as Ilse has mentioned, this report highlighted the situation of our collections then and the huge challenges that we faced. Out of this report came the Natural History Collections funding instrument in May 2014, where some institutions benefited from this pilot project where our natural science collections were funded by the NRF. And I recall that meeting in November 2014 that Michelle has mentioned. And it was called to discuss, I think, our progress with the pilot project, as well as an introduction to the research infrastructure roadmap. And I think it was probably one of our first discussions as a collective about our natural science collections. And to be honest with you, as Michelle said, it was bleak. I recall that even our NRF colleagues expressed dismay that what we were trying to achieve just seemed hopeless. They were recognizing the need for support for our collections, but we as a collective seemed to be sabotaging our own progress, with our focus being on our individual institutional challenges and in some cases, our narrow research focus areas instead of the entire value chain. Throughout 2015, the small task team worked on the research infrastructure proposal, with Michelle doing most of the work putting it together. And this process culminated in January 2016, when our proposal was submitted to the DST, which is now the DSI, and it was presented at the Research Infrastructure Steering Committee. I stood in for Michelle and presented to the committee because she was unavailable at the time. So let me just describe the scene. A large conference room full of observers, fellow presenters, and the steering committee. Amongst fellow presenters from various science fields, which included genomics and the bioeconomy, nuclear medicine, nanotechnology, I was the only female, the only person of color, and the only person without a title of doctor or professor in front of my name. And there I was fighting for dead animals and plants. Angus was part of the steering committee, but he couldn't assist me. I was on my own and I was terrified. But it was the team and Michelle that did the hard work, and my responsibility at that moment was to ensure that I did the proposal justice. Throughout 2016 and 2017, we worked on fine-tuning the proposal, delivering to our action plan, and the task team grew during those years to include more people and institutions, and that year culminated in the first forum taking place in October 2017. And as Ilse has mentioned, in December 2017, we were introduced as a reference group to Des and Ilse to introduce us to this change management process. So in Feb 2018, we had a deep dive into the start of our transformation process, with the leadership of the various institutions spending a week in Cape St. Francis with fellow colleagues. And in retrospect, I feel that's where the hard work really started. Everything that came before really paled in comparison to what we were now expected to do. It was during this period that I realized that this journey had not started in 2011 when I first read the audit report. It in fact started when I went for my first job interview as collections manager at the then Natal Museum, now KZN Museum, with Michelle on the panel and who would later be my manager in that institution. It was April 1997 and I was 22 years old and 7 months pregnant with my second daughter. And here I was going after a job at a museum, not even fully understanding what was expected of me in this environment of dead animals. Michelle gave me the opportunity, and it was here that my love and respect for collections grew. It was during this week in Cape St. Francis that I realized the huge suitcase, literally and figuratively, that I'd arrived with. Up until that point, we had discussed the action plans, equipment to be bought, governance structures, collections, institutions, all the easy stuff. We had had change management from the outset as part of our enabling strategies to achieve our objectives for the NSCF, but we truly didn't know what was now being asked of us. We all arrived ready to discuss our dead animals and plants, but instead we had to now discuss our feelings. Picture a room full of about 30 professionals in the field of science, confronting their prejudices, their identities, their stories. At first, not a pretty sight, but it has grown into a beautiful journey. In this setting, I now had to deal with my feelings around race, patriarchy, my colored identity, my colored privilege. I had to confront my own demons, my struggle with identity, having grown up in a colored township of Wentworth, but being privileged enough to attend a private school and UCT. 2 feet straddling both worlds. One world of borrowed privilege and the other of perceived and actual limitations. Not quite fitting into both, not quite enough for either. Working with dead animals was easy. They had a label. I knew what it was, where it came from, who had collected it, and when it had been collected. It was neat. There was order. It fitted into a box or a bottle. Well-organized confines. But now I had to sit in a room with my colleagues and talk about my innermost fears, deal with the messiness of apartheid and privilege, my own and that of others, and the role that systemic racism and gender bias has played in my journey. Most of the time we just do. We just push through, we push down what we are faced with on a daily basis. But now we were being asked to acknowledge these in our work environment, our place of dead animals with people that we barely knew. I had to confront the fact that whilst I was there for my individual development, I was in fact holding the space for my fellow women, fellow Black colleagues, fellow white colleagues, those that came before me, were with me, and those that would come after me. And since February 2018, we have walked this transformation journey together, each time looking for the next elegant next minimum step, realizing that we all come to the process as leaders and accepting that we have what we need to make things better. So yes, we sit back and we look at the tangible results of our hard work as a collective, the equipment bought, the data that was organized, the training done, the manual produced, and much more. But it's the intangible results that have brought us here, the people that make up this network. It's been messy, it's been joyful, at times very painful, always inspiring. But this process has also been the most transformative within the network on this beautiful journey. And so just very quickly to end off with the pantoum that I did on our first week in Cape St. Francis, it read, "We can't control systems, but we can dance with them. Wow, how we have progressed as a country, but still lots of work. Racism, unacceptable, and by us as a community not doing anything about it, we are condoning it. Be true to my soul always, and brave and humble and kind. Wow, how we have progressed as a country, but still lots of work. Access, that's why I'm so passionate about museums. Be true to my soul always, and brave and humble and kind. Making science a lived experience for African children. Access, that's why I'm so passionate about museums. Provide resources of time, the scarcest commodity of all. Making science a lived experience for African children. We might view all time as being present in one moment, this moment, now. Provide resources of time, the scarcest commodity of all. Racism, unacceptable, and by us as a community not doing anything about it, we are condoning it. We might view all time as being present in this one moment, this moment, now. We can't control systems, but we can dance with them." Thanks.
Wow, Alison. Wow. Oh, I'm feeling a little tearful, I must say. This is the second time, and it's hardly 11 o'clock, and I'm feeling almost the second time I'm feeling a little tearful this morning. Thank you so much, Alison. That was so exquisite. That was such an exquisite journey that we took with you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Sure. So between Lavuyo, Angus, Tertia, who feels like stepping in? Tertia, are you ready?
I'll go for it.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. To those that don't know me, I'm Tertia Perigal. I'm now manager for heritage assets for the Tsong Museums of South Africa. So I've stepped a little bit out of the purely natural history focus, but it's still very, very close to my heart. I'm going to try and stay within my time. Being a former librarian, I'm very pedantic about being within, set classifications. So just to share my story, it's this whole journey of the network is very, 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 left a very big part in my life, because the reference group meeting was in December. That previous month, 1st of November, I was appointed as acting director, kicking and screaming, much to my objections. I wasn't given a choice. So fresh out of my little bubble where I spent 20 years quite happily just doing what I do every single day. Suddenly, a month into this, I get called to this very big, very important meeting with people I didn't know. So I was very unsure, still trying to find my feet. And it's sort of played this journey of transformation through the network. It was a journey of myself and the network sort of taking steps together. I always see it that way, because it's this transformation program, this work the NSCF was starting to do was, just in its infancy, growing, how are we going to change? How are we going to do things differently? How are we going to do things right? And it was also the thoughts I was dealing with at that moment personally in my professional journey. How am I going to do things right? How am I going to make things better for those around me? And I remember that very first meeting in Cape St. Francis. I am not a very emotional, very engaging person. And after that first week, I remember one of the days calling a very good friend who happens to be our human capital manager in tears, because my bubble was badly burst. I had lived in this happy little bubble where everything was right in the world. Everyone was happy. Things had been done right. Those that had struggled finally found peace. And then just to have people tell their stories, what they suffered, what they're still suffering, what they're going through in the institutions, and then to realize I lived in that world and I didn't see it. I didn't realize it. And maybe from my ignorance caused even more hurt and added more pain was horrible. I mean, I remember the one lunch I quietly disappeared and sat in my room and cried my eyes out, which I don't do. But it had such a profound effect in me. It was almost like a dying. This world died and I was born into a new one. I didn't know what was going to happen. And again, that it speaks to the journey that the NSCF was taking on. And at that time, we were also at Tsong starting with our own transformation strategy. And by then, we had a wonderful, wonderful mentor, Professor Dr. Matlao. And he always talked about how transformation isn't just about the South Africa. Transformation in South Africa is a very unique additional perspective, which is a perspective of race. But it's about how we do things. It's about how organizations work. So it's everything together. And we had to have hard conversations at work. And then I would come to the NSCF and had these very hard conversations as well. And it built an openness. It was very, very hard to face certain realities, particularly for myself as a very privileged white individual who lived in this complete bubble of ignorance. Colleagues who I thought were friends were talking about difficult situations that they had faced at work. And then I'd go back and say to colleagues, I didn't realize that this was happening. Just what have I missed? What have I missed? So it was also that whole thing about checking yourself, understanding what others are going through. And then also to build in us the courage and the confidence to stand in front of colleagues and say, I don't accept this type of thing. This is the conversations I will not stand for. And to be in a position of authority to say, this is not how we're going to do it. Going forward, this is how things will be. Everyone is equal. Everyone has a right. Hard things have to be said, and to have the courage to say it, which was fantastic. So yeah, those were the very, very hard moments. The other memory I have is sitting opposite Chanel. We had to do practice listening, and you have to speak for 5 minutes. And as you can tell, I'm not a very good speaker. And then Chanel's looking at me, and you have to look at each other's eyes. And I could see there were moments she so desperately wanted to give in her input and advice, but her task was to just listen. And then when the tables would turn, the same thing, she would tell me her story. And I so much wanted to give an input, but I shouldn't. I should just be listening. And it has had a profound effect on me to just listen. And it's very hard, particularly if you are an introvert and you don't want to sit and have that constant eye contact with someone. It is very, very difficult, but it taught me. It taught me to be a better communicator, taught me to listen. And anyone who's just starting this journey, what I can say is from me personally, and and in my professional work since then, it has changed me almost 180 degrees. It's had a very, very massive effect on my growth as a person, as a professional, and I can feed it into the organization so we can have more honest and open conversations. Try with colleagues as well to say, you shouldn't, this isn't how you talk to someone, this is how you talk to someone. Just listen to the people. And it's done a lot. The challenges that I still envision in the organization is probably because my growth and the network's growth I tend to see as parallel. As I grow, the network has grown. Probably remains still a little bit of self-confidence. The organization still needs to stand up and say, this is what we do, this is how we will do it. Because there are still always people who will be resistant to change, who will kick up against, but we've done this like this so many years and it's worked, and why do we have to change it? Or they will complain. I just spoke to a colleague now, Dr. Solani, and I said to him, I don't understand colleagues who complain that things aren't working. But when you're bringing in change to better the work situation, to better your collections, to better your organizations, they kick up against that change, the very change that they're sort of indirectly asking to come in. So I would see that defensiveness in the face of change and self-confidence, if an organization, since it is a living organism, might feel a sense of, lack of self-confidence, or maybe it's just me projecting onto the network my personal feelings, but that's what I would think would be some of the challenges. I do greatly appreciate, and my time's up, but anyway, I do greatly appreciate that what the organization has done, and what I see it's done not just myself, but in all the colleagues around, and how it's brought us all together. And I just want to close that there's a peace to be found in knowing that others share common difficulties. That, it's not just me who has difficulties with funding. It's not just me whose collections are deteriorating because there's lack of resources. To have that common, we're all in the same misery together, but we're also sharing our joy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tertia. That was just beautiful. And that was just so honest and so real. And it was just beautiful. It wasn't planned that way, but it was just so beautiful that Tertia's experience kind of spoke about that opposite, that way, that experience that was racialized in a different way, that was situated in a different way. And thank you. That was really beautiful. Thank you very much. Angus, shall we move on to you, and then we'll give Levuyo the last word. You know how he loves the last word.
Yeah, Levuyo always likes the last word. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I think, firstly, what I want to say is that, we've been led by someone who's very inspiring, Michelle. She's always selfless and not taking any praise, but Michelle really pulled us all together. 10 years ago, the institutions could barely talk to each other. So it's a long journey, and really Michelle's the one who's been behind it. For me, it's been a very interesting one. I've been in the same institution. Okay, I stepped out for 6 years, but I've been in the same institution for 33 years, which means that I first started when I was 19. And this gave me a lot of cause for reflection to start off as a student and then end up as the director. In 1988, the J.L.B. Smith Institute then had no people of color in any management position, no people of color in any technical position. We only had male students, and they were only white male students. Basically, it was a wholly untransformed institution with the vestiges of a very strong apartheid and colonial past. And my journey really started with the institute as the director, and then I think a couple of things came in at the same time. Firstly was the realization that very little had been done in terms of change in the institute between 94 and 2010. And I think that speaks to the country as well. I think very little thought had gone into change. It was this sort of kumbaya, let's all bask in the glory that we didn't kill each other. And then we put everything in the bottom drawer and left it, thinking, and that hasn't served us well at all. I think there was a couple of things that really changed my perspectives and the way I look at myself. Well, one was it was almost not a perfect storm, but a perfect coincidence of fees must fall in 2015, 2016, just to show how sick the higher education system was. We also at SIAB went through a process with the WITS, with WICEDs at WITS, were led by Kirsten Kloppers and Busi Dlamini, which I'm sure Alison and Desiree are, Ilse and Desiree are familiar with. So there were a lot of formative people in a time of profound change in my life, and that was Kirsten and Busi and Ilse and Desiree, and then in-house, and Nati played a fundamental role. He headed up the union at that stage at the institute, as well as Gas van Heerden and Francesca, and I think all of them brought a different flavor to really opening my eyes on a little bit of introspection as to what type of institution I was heading, and held me to the flame at times, and that's great. You know, one must appreciate as a leader that really you do need to be held to the flame sometimes. Also with a lot of compassion, and Nati got me to cry, got me to laugh, and a whole range of things. And yeah, he was pivotal in my life, and Garth. And I think, you know, a lot of the things that I thought about within the institution is obviously the demographics were all wrong. The hearts and minds needed a lot of work, and really hearts and minds is as important as demographics. And also, just as a young director, also had to deal with being a dominant male personality and trying to dial that back, trying to learn to listen, trying to deal with my patriarchy, and trying to operate in a very different world, and take the institute, trying to work out whether there was even a role for a white male director who comes from a privileged background. When we had the privileged walk, I ended up outside the building. One's got to recognize where one's comes from. And yeah, it's been an interesting trip for SIAB. I think we've made a lot of progress. I think we've learned a lot of things. We've got things wrong at times, and we've shed some tears. I think COVID has put us in a bit of a stasis mode that we really need to think about things at SIAB. How are we going to go forward? We sort of just put everything on park while we try to deal with this beast of COVID. I think the NSCF has taught us a lot in terms of how you can tackle COVID and actually still retain your personal relationships. We've got a lot to think about in terms of how we go forward. We've also just gone through another NRF process, talking about transformation within the whole of the NRF. And I think that's reinvigorated the staff as to what we want to tackle next and how we want to move on our journey. But yeah, it's been an interesting and sometimes quite traumatic ride. I think the institute is far better for it. And I really think that the NSCF has played a fundamental and I think not unrecognized, but I hope that it's very hard to communicate to the funders. I don't know who's there, whether Danny's there or whether Yona's there listening in still, but just what a fundamental change the NSCF's made to the whole of the community. Just in the thoughts and the progresses, tears shed, and if I had a look at all the sorrow projects, I'm now speaking to the funders if they're still here, it's undoubtedly taken the bull by the horns in terms of understanding what transformation truly is. The other programs have concentrated quite correctly so on the widgets and the infrastructure and the science. Not that the NSCF hasn't, but what the NSCF's really got right is driving home the journey we've been on, and also indicating, which is my continual debate with the NRF, is that real resources need to be put behind this. And it's not a one-off issue. We built a relationship with Desiree and Ilse, yeah, I'll stop there. Other than certainly from my desk at SIAB, a deep thank you to the NSCF and to Michelle in particular, and also to my staff to taking me on my journey. A very deep thanks to Kusanati and Garth and Francesca. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Angus. And I think that many of us, if not every single person on this call, will agree that if there is one thing that this country needs, it is the leadership of privileged white males who stand up, who do the work, who do the reflection, who do the self-reflection, who make themselves vulnerable, and who then continue to offer their gifts to our country, to our nation. And so it is a walking through the fire when on that privilege walk, you are the one that is sort of outside of the building with all your privilege. It's sitting in the fire. It's a difficult journey. And it is very inspiring. And it's been very inspiring for us, Angus, to be able to work with a white male that embodies the transformation process in the way that you have. So thank you very much. We all appreciate and love you very much. I also just want to acknowledge before I hand over to Levuyo that Isabel Wrong of the Agriculture Research Council, is that right, ARC, was also part of our initial little reference group. And I'm very sad that Isabel can't be here today, even if it was just to hear that beautiful South African accent, that beautiful English South African accent that Isabel brings, that absolutely grounded, beautiful, raw humanity that Isabel brings into the space. But unfortunately, she couldn't be with us this morning. Hopefully she'll join tomorrow. And maybe we will even find a little space for her somewhere in the program to bring a little bit of her reflection into this beautiful fabric that we're weaving together, because Isabel was very much part of that initial phase and very much part of that initial little reference group. So her seat is absent here this morning. But with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Levuyo, for some of your reminiscences and some of your memories. And yeah, to hear some of your stories.
No, thank you, colleagues. Angus, I'm happy to see you, bro. It's been some time. I knew that my other colleague, as you know, Alison, will take more, because you know how much she talks. But I'm happy to see you, all of you, colleagues. Ilse, as I have indicated earlier, this has been a journey. You know, Angus has taken me aback. I think, Angus, you were meant to be a leader there in that institution. And you have taken me aback, because when I start introspecting, I realized that now I'm 25 years in this department. But fortunately for me, I went to sport, I went to arts and culture, and I also went to museums and heritage. So there's that diversity that I have. But I think because of my qualifications also, because as you know, colleagues have been, I'm a product of social sciences. I did political science, I did anthropology, I did sociology, and others. I also upgraded my studies by engaging in master's programs for labor relations, labor law. 2015, whilst I was a manager at Sarah Batman, which was then Grahamstown district, I was deployed to run museums and heritage section there as a manager. And the department was encountering a lot of problems, especially with this institution, which is Bayweld, because there were a lot of complaints of racism and all that. Labor relations matters. There was a lot of upheavals within this institution. And then I applied for this post, which was 2015. Fortunately, I was appointed in 2016. Before I started, my HOD called me and said to me, you know, we feel that as senior management of this department, you are going to make a mark in that institution because of your character. Go there, turn around that institution. We believe in you. 2017, the first meeting that I attended, the facility meeting in Cape Town, it was all white. And you could see it's male dominated, you know. Michelle was there. You could see that Michelle is bulldozed there. You could see that patriarchy was there and all that. But she's got a strong character and she had a vision. She knew what she wanted and she had an eye and an ear to listen. I had a conviction that, you know what, here's the test of time. Let's engage with these colleagues. Let's go ahead with them. Let's try by all means and transform this institution and transform our institutions within the country, because that's a clear mandate. It wasn't easy, colleagues. As colleagues have alluded to, Tesha, I could see your cries in Cape St. Francis. Isabel, your tears were all over your cheeks. Chanel, everybody was emotional because we could hit the nail at the time. We could hit the nerve at the time. Because there's no way, if you want to transform and implement transformation, then you duck and dive. You should hit the nerve. So the programs that you introduced, Ilsa and Desiree, at least they are making a mark. And within our way forward, as we are navigating within this forum, I think we're going to make a change. There are some who never wanted to change, and some have left this institution. And I said to Michelle the other time, whilst Michelle was stressful in one of these meetings, but I think, I don't know whether was it the one at Cape St. Francis or the one after. We just had a tea, and I said to Michelle, we feel behind you. Whether you like it or not, you must forge ahead with this program. This program is going to assist not only the facility, the country, because you know this facility, it's more composed of scientists who are used in working in their corners. And now They pretend as if there's nothing more important to their lives than their work, of which forgetting that they are mothers and fathers that have got to try and change and transform their own families. And as we move along, we realize that, there are a lot of problems. People started opening up, At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say, colleagues, is to say this program is playing a lot. This program, in terms of social cohesion, nation building, non-racialism, it's playing a role, it's adding value to the country. And we need to talk about our programs. We don't have to be ashamed. We need to be able to let people know what is exactly that we're doing. It's not only about the promotion and the preservation of collections, but it's also about mind change of ideas, change of people's attitudes towards a better goal. I'm saying to you, Michelle, and you, Angas, you fought against all odds amongst the challenges that you were confronted with within your sector. But let's soldier on. There's still a way forward that we've got to undertake. There's still a way forward that we have to be able to say, what is it that we're achieving? Are we really adding value to the country? Are we really adding value to the promotion of our own collections? Because the outside world should be able to know, what are these collections adding value to our country? We have a higher rate of unemployment. There's a lot. Fees must fall might come at any time. The money that we're given now, we might not get it because of other important challenges within that are facing the country. But as we're navigating, moving along, we should know that this program plays a lot. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Luvuyo. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you for being that voice of cohesion, that voice of love, forgiveness. I don't think I know anybody else who stands so unequivocally for social cohesion, for reconciliation. It's a beautiful thing to be the person that one thinks about when one thinks about those things, Luvuyo. So thank you very, very much. Colleagues, I don't know about you, but I just found this whole conversation absolutely beautiful and heart-opening, and it has taught me again, even as I listened myself, it has just taught me again so much about what it takes to walk a road together, to achieve something together, what it takes. There's a few comments from you before we hand back to our tech team and see whether our video has been, whether we've been able to stitch together our video. The unveiling of the manual and the brief introduction to the manual will happen just in the last half an hour or so of the program. But we will go back to our beautiful introduction of all the different institutions after we've heard from Des.
I just want to say thank you and appreciate your powerful personal sharing from the heart. And this is real transformation, from the self to your teams, the collective, and broader to the institutions and the whole NSCF. And often we, when we try to do this work, often it gets rubbed off or brushed off as soft skills. And I really don't like that word, soft skills. I just want to call it vital skills, lifeblood, because I think this is the work that all of you have shared, that you've done so well. So really commendable and wonderful, courageous leadership that I think provides such a role modeling for the whole community. Thank you so much. wow and wow again. I think everybody's been reading all the comments and just completely blown away by this beautiful, beautiful presentations. And I think we are all looking forward to seeing it again on YouTube. So looking forward to that, and such beautiful effort from everyone. Thank you. Ilse, anything from your side? I know we're pressed for time. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to the team that will do the manual unveiling. So handing over to that group now. Thanks everyone for all your efforts.
One of the NSCF objectives is to secure collections and make them accessible so that they can be used in research. So that led us to having to develop a manual, and that manual has been developed and it's completed. Gosnati shared on the manual development webinar the travel tales that it took to put the manual together, and the institutions have also all confirmed they all got their copies. So from the CMC working group and the data working group, here it is to the network, your collection management and conservation manual. Yay!
So I've got to talk this without hurting anybody.
Yay!
Oops. I don't want to stalk on the manuals. Now they can all see the back of me.
There we go.
Uh-huh.
I have 2 glasses. That's non-alcoholic.
Audrey, can you move behind the table because we can't see you?
Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Thank you. Great.
All right. Yeah, thanks everybody. Yeah. I hope everybody's
celebrating.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Cheers,
Okay.
everyone. I'll have my glass later with all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, great. Wonderful celebrations. What a big moment. Thank you. So we just may have 1 or 2 announcements, I think, from Fulu. Fulu?
Thank you, Des. So this time is for the photo competition. So I'm just going to share my screen just to show everyone the entries that we've received. They'll be playing as I speak. And thank you to everyone who has submitted. So we have 4 categories. The first one is the most beautiful specimens, which is the one I'm showing now. And then we have, I hope they have all played, but overall we have 4 entries for this category. And then the next one is the most iconic. Let me just play. We have 6 entries here. I'm just gonna let it play a bit. And the next one is the ugliest specimen. So it seems like people are very protective over their specimens because we only have 1 entry under the the most ugliest specimen. So I understand just a bit, but if you feel like there is a specimen that looks ugly, you can please enter it into the competition. We need some competition there. So this is the entry for the ugliest specimen that we currently have. So please share more. And then the last one is the funniest or funny looking specimens. And we have 3 entries under this one. and they will play. Yes, that's the last one. So just to let you know that the submissions will be closing on day 2, which is tomorrow, Wednesday, and they will close at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you need to please enter more specimens. You have from now until tomorrow at 4. Voting will open on day 2, which is also tomorrow, but at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So you'll be able to start voting from tomorrow. I'm going to share the links in the email that you will receive today. So if you want to start voting, it will open at 5 and you can use those links. Voting closes on day 3, which is Thursday at 11:30 in the evening. It's not evening, at night. So you have, I feel like that's enough time for you to vote. And you're going to use links, so you can vote at any time that you want, as long as it's in that within that time. Winners will be announced on day 4, which is Friday, at the time that is indicated on the program. So thank you very much. Back to you, Des.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I just wanted to leave a little note for you in the chat. So for tomorrow, there'll be some parallel sessions, and I will be running a session on creating intention in uncertain times. It's a creative session. And so I'm just leaving some materials that you will need to bring to that session if you're going to join my parallel session tomorrow. You'll need some paper, some magazines, scissors, and print. Okay, so please do bring that along with you. Okay, Ilse, any last comments for the day?
I think just a reminder that people will be receiving an email with the links to the breakaway sessions. So have a look, both for the before and after tea session. You need to choose a breakaway session and you need to register for that as soon as possible. And then we're going to start tomorrow morning with a beautiful check-in round, where we'll have an opportunity to share with each other what came up for us in today's introduction, the story so far, meeting each other. So we're sacrificing this afternoon a small group session, but we're picking up with that small group session tomorrow morning. That's it.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It was an absolutely beautiful, memorable first day. So have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Okay, different link. Okay, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.